Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be discussing the Liverpool-Manchester United rivalry ending in a 3-0, or not the rivalry ending, but the match ending in a 3-0 win for Liverpool. We'll discuss Arsenal dropping points to Brighton, in part to the Declan Rice sort of weird red card. We'll talk about Hansi Flick in this Barcelona team. They defeated Valladolid 7-0. Is Hansi Flick on his way in turning this Barcelona team into a juggernaut, a team to be feared with? We'll talk about Erling Haaland. Is he the best player in the world? And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. Before we start off, though, if you have a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes this show great, and we thrive on your energy and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share, don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. Now, if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking, hit that super chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can also go to gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. Time to go back, though. Liverpool defeated Manchester United 7-0. Not 7-0, 3-0. I'm going back and thinking about that last game. That one game. Behind 2 goals from Luis Diaz in the 35th and 42nd minute. And then Salah was able to score third in the 56th minute. And look, we can read the stats. I don't think it really tells much of the story. 11 shots for Liverpool, 8 shots for United, 3 shots on target for Liverpool, 3 shots on target for United, 47% possession for Liverpool, 53% possession for United. But I have to say, within the run of play, Liverpool were far better, the better team. They look much more decisive, they were much more clinical. They had a much better cutting edge. Like early on in the game, United had some positive moments and really, performed well in the early parts of the game, but then there was a shift of momentum suddenly, sort of halfway through the first half, and Liverpool just looked like the dominant team for there, looked more comfortable, looked more clinical, looked more decisive, looked more dangerous. Now the first 2 goals come, it's obvious. There came straight off Casemiro mistakes. In the first goal, he hits a ball that gets intercepted in midfield that leads straight to an attack on the other way. And the second, he is kind of being clumsy in possession, loses the ball, not on the edge of the box, but close to the penalty box, leads to quick chance for Liverpool. 2-0 Luis Diaz on the back post. And, and then he gets subbed off at halftime. That's something we'll touch on later on. But then the third goal comes on another play, another, counter attack. It reaches to Salah on the left-hand side. And I have to say, very, very poor goalkeeping. Originally when I watched that goal, I was, it just didn't seem right that was able to beat Onana from there. It was, on his near post. He was on the line for some reason. He was on the line, and it seemed like he was way too protecting of that back post, because that ball was not even in the corner. It was a well-placed, it had a pace on it, it was a well-placed strike, but it wasn't in the corner of the goal. It was enough centrally that Onana should have been able to save that. His starting positioning was bad, his reflexes was not good enough, and he shouldn't have been on the line. He should have been 1-2 yards above the line to lower the angle down. For me, that was a really poor mistake, and not a lot of people are talking about it. For some reason, but for me, you cannot get beat in that sort of positioning. And And yeah, so there are a lot of individual mistakes there, but overall, in terms of the game, United just got outplayed. And it's very disheartening for United. You know, you see Jürgen Klopp leave, and you kind of have a sigh of relief. Okay, now this is the chance that we can, start competing with, Liverpool again. And then the first game, they come to Old Trafford and they embarrass y'all 3-0. It's a tough pill for United, the players to swallow, the manager, the fans. Yeah, it's really a tough pill to swallow. And the manager, Eric Ten Hag, he's not doing himself favors. We know the pressure, the kind of pressure he's under. How does Marcus Rashford play the amount of time he did? How does Garnacho be the one that gets pulled instead of Marcus Rashford, who has not done anything and hasn't done anything this season, hasn't done anything the past year and a half, was horrible this game. And what did I say before the game, by the way? What did I say before the game? Marcus Rashford. The key to whoever's playing on Trent Alexander-Arnold's side is to stay tight with him when he comes and he starts overlapping. How many times did Trent Alexander-Arnold have time to play a ball? How many times? And it led to the goal. It led to it led to opportunities. It led to that goal with Diaz. With Diaz being on the back post. Because Marcus Rashford, he did a decent job tracking back, but he didn't do the finishing job of sticking tight to Trent Alexander-Arnold. He got a little lazy at the end, and Trent Alexander-Arnold had a constant amount of time to pick out passes and all that. And again, that's what I said. That's one of the keys in the game. Also, another key I said in the game is how United attack this game, how open they leave themselves. They looked very susceptible in transition again. Very, very susceptible. Now, the first two goals, you can't really blame their transition defense because their midfielder, their holding midfielder, the one that's supposed to run the show, really put them in awkward positioning, losing the ball in bad areas. But for me, I mean, again, their transition defending was not good enough, I have to say, with Manchester United. Just big problems with United, in my opinion. They didn't look... They had a very good start to the game. That's the sort of ironic part. They had a very good start of the game, but then suddenly just the momentum shifted completely the other way. And now going with the Casemiro thing getting subbed off at half is not, we never want to see a sort of player playing at this sort of level, get humiliated like that, who's had some of the best highs in his career when you talk about the Champions Leagues, the La Liga titles. He's done it all, Club World Cup. But it's just clearly off it, he's making mistakes that are costing the team, especially in this game, and he just doesn't look like the player he once was. And it's sad about, I don't think Casemiro is done or anything. I think this is a bad performance, for him. And it happens. You remember Thiago Silva in his opening game for Chelsea, or for one of the first few games, he made a horrendous mistake to West Ham. Against West Brom? It ended up costing us points there. So look, I'm not here to bash Casemiro, but he's just not the player that he once was. And Ugarte coming in there will make a difference, for sure, because he'll do the defensive work that Casemiro can't do as well anymore with the athleticism. And he also has a good enough ability to control the ball, to control tempo in midfield. And Kobbie Mainoo, defensively, that's not his game. We've realized this for now. He doesn't defend, so it'll also be a protection for Kobbie Mainoo being in there. Xerxes wasn't really involved enough. The few times that he got in, he wasn't really great. There was one play where he kind of waited for the ball to come to him instead of attacking, going through the ball. He sort of waited, allowed the defender to sort of to make a play on the ball. And then, with United, it's just a never-ending cycle of disappointment. I just have to say, as far as Liverpool, great performance. Clinical, dangerous, decisive, ruthless. Mohamed Salah, for me, he's still up there with one of the best players in the world. We'll talk about Erling Haaland later being potentially the best player in the world. For me, Mo Salah is still there. The quality he has, and I questioned him a little bit at the end of the season, last season. Is he declining? No, he's not declining. He's still a great player. He still has pace. He still has that goal-scoring knack to him. He's a dominant player playing on that right-hand side. We see what Luis Diaz can do as well, getting 2 goals. His pace, his skill level. Gravenberch has been sort of a revelation for Liverpool this season, sort of playing in an unnatural role, sort of playing a little bit deeper in midfield. He's been very, very comfortable, and he's played there like he's played there all of his career. He's been very, very good. Defensively as well, Liverpool were very, very solid, didn't give up much. We know Alisson, still the best keeper in the world. For me, or one of the best goalkeepers in the world. For me, Liverpool, this is a 10 out of 10 performance, and they're really building themselves up as a credible title contender, which I was sort of doubting entering the season. I believe I had Liverpool 4th. I didn't even have them in the top 3. Well, they're looking very credible. They're looking ruthless. They're looking hungry, and for me, they are a team not to be reckoned with, because look, you see the performance they had, and then they have the ability to bring on like Darwin Núñez and Cody Gakpo off the bench. That's a really talented team, and they're playing some really, really good football. I love the way Arne Slot has this team sort of set up. We're getting more and more of an idea of how this team wants to go about it game by game. For me, I have to say, Liverpool are a team not to be reckoned with, for sure. They're a very brilliant team, very good in terms of all aspects. There was one thing I wanted to point out that I forgot to point out on the show. Yes, there was some interesting comments that Salah made regarding Liverpool, saying, he essentially said, here, I don't want to quote him. I said, this is what Mohamed Salah said. I had a good summer and had a long time to myself to try to stay positive, because as you know, it's my last year at the club. I just want to enjoy it and I don't want to think about it. I feel like I'm free to play football, and then we'll see what happens next year. Yeah, that's very interesting. Number one, nobody's running away with those sort of comments. Usually when someone makes those sort of comments, especially a player like Salah, it's the people are gonna start talking. Oh, this is his last season. This is his, this is his sort of last season, his farewell season. Blah blah blah. When Jürgen Klopp, stepped away, the amount of report. This didn't really get that much, attention in the media. Which was really shocking to me, because he's essentially saying this is my last year at the club. And the talk around the media is Liverpool need to do everything they can to keep him. And people are sort of looking at his comments as sort of a negotiation tactic. But I don't know. And I hope it's not his last year at Liverpool. He's at this sort of level. He cannot go to Saudi. He can just offer so much still to football. And I think it's very vital for Liverpool to sort of, make that decision. Not make that decision, but to get the contract done. If it comes down to the fact, if it's a money matter or anything, I think Liverpool, need to put the money on the table. And hopefully we get to see Salah more in the Premier League, longer at Liverpool, because he's just such a talent. He's such a talent. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll talk about Arsenal dropping points to Brighton due to a silly red card by Declan Rice.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed Liverpool dominating United at Old Trafford. We move on to talk about Arsenal. Man. Same old Arsenal, huh? Is this, I was very, very high praising them for that result against Aston Villa. I thought it was a phenomenal result and very, very impressive what they were able to do away at Villa Park. I was very, very, very impressed. But again, with Arsenal, you have to be careful. They have dropped points 1 week later to Brighton, and obviously there will be a level of sympathy. No question about it. And the fact that the red card did change the game. Before the red card, Arsenal did look like the better team. They looked more not cohesive, but their quality just prevailed. They were just looked at a better team against Brighton, and they were up 1-0. But once that red card, in which we'll dive into later, once that silly red card happened, it was it was Brighton that was really the dominant team. Dominant might be a little bit of a stretch, but it was Brighton that looked the better team. Brighton looked more like they were the ones that were they looked like they were going to be the ones that could get the second goal to get the win. It didn't seem like Arsenal. Arsenal was, sort of hanging on. And look, there's a lot of ways, to start from here. I'll actually like to start from the red card, actually. So Declan Rice, he gets a yellow, previous during the game, he gets a yellow. Okay. He, early on the game, there was a sort of similar situation for Brighton. Arsenal, one of the Arsenal players, I can't remember right now, tries to take a free kick. A Brighton player sort of kicks it out. This is early in the game, kicks it out, and the referee doesn't do anything about it. Partly because, it's early in the game. Referees, they don't want to get involved. Well, not they don't want to get involved, but they it's difficult. You don't want to give someone a yellow card immediately into the game and really, force them to play with the yellow card for the rest of the game. You try not to get involved when you're sort of in the opening moments in the game. You try to keep it calm, cool, collected. But what the problem is, later on in the start of the second half, sort of similar situation happens. Veltman is trying to, sort of take a quick free kick. Declan Rice sort of gets out of the way. It sort of is jogging past him, and he sort of flicks the ball out to the side. Veltman then goes, in my opinion, he, sort of purposely sort of kicks out at Declan Rice, pretending to go for the ball. And it leads to, once Declan Rice sort of gets up from the ground, it leads to a second yellow for Declan Rice. He gets sent off. Look, it is the correct call. That is time wasting, what Declan Rice did. It is time wasting. There was the Declan Rice comments after the game saying it was unlucky because it was kind of in the corner and they didn't really have a chance to attack from there. Like they weren't gonna, it didn't stop an attack. But look, the rules are the rules, and that's not part of the rules if you're stopping an attack by doing it. In general, you time waste, and that's considered time wasting. You'll get a second yellow. Now, there is the inconsistency aspect of it that the referee is getting criticized for, which I don't mind. But What I will be saying is Veltman deserved at least a yellow card, because in my opinion there is no way. There was no, like, he saw the ball get kicked kind of, and the way he's kicking the ball, he lashes out. That's not the way someone would go approaching, take a free kick. I wouldn't say he intended to hurt Declan Rice, but he was definitely going through him no matter what, and it was kind of, in my opinion, pretty unnecessary. You could have just aimed for the ball and sort of hit it off Declan Rice, and it was still, So for me, Veltman deserved a yellow card at least. And then Declan Rice, that was a second yellow. I mean, you cannot, in that sort of, even what happened earlier in the game, that is a second yellow. That is time wasting. You can't argue it. And to be fair to Declan Rice, he kind of took it on the chin after the game. He did acknowledge that, it was a mistake. He talked about how it was unfortunate because it led immediate, it was in the corner and didn't, there was the chances of that leading to an immediate attack by Brighton were pretty low, but it was very unnecessary, and it's something that is stupid to do when you're on a yellow card, because, what do a lot of professionals say about, whenever you're on a yellow, did you give the referee an opportunity to give a second yellow? He gave the referee an opportunity. It's a silly thing to do when you're on a yellow card. It's extremely silly, and it's a critical mistake, because with Arsenal battling Manchester City, every point is gonna matter. Every single point is gonna be very detrimental, and this could be the game that they look back on, and Arsenal fans players, whatever, they'll all be saying, This is when we lost the Premier League, whenever Declan Rice made that critical mistake, and it is an absolutely critical mistake. So for me, it is a deserved second yellow. I think Veltman also deserved the yellow. But for me, there's no real arguing there. And it was inconsistent from the referee, and the referee does deserve to be criticized for that. But Declan Rice deserved the yellow, and I'm not the type of believer that believes in, you make a mistake on one side, you should reward the other team on the other side to make up for. I don't believe in that, because that's just dumb. That's not how it works in life, But yeah, overall, talking about Arsenal's performance, tale of two halves. It's really hard to be critical of a team in their performance when when they go down a man. We saw, how Newcastle looked against Southampton, newly promoted Southampton, at St. James's Park on top when they went down a man. And yeah, look, it's a tale of two halves, And yeah, Brighton, they looked the better team in the second half. If anyone was gonna win it, it was Brighton. They've looked really good under Fabian Hürtel. I have to say, Brighton have looked really good. They played some really sharp football. They play with confidence. They play with pace. They have the ability. They have some cute and clever players that can play, decent when time and space is compressed. They're a team to not be, to not look after. Right now, they're third in the Premier League, which, it's not saying much. It was 3 games, obviously. But 2 wins and a draw is a good start. To keep in mind, you're looking at it before the season. They take on Everton away, United, and Arsenal. That's a pretty difficult start. And to finish with 7 points in that start, they should be very, very impressed with. And keep in mind, this is a manager in Fabian Hürtel that hasn't, he's never coached at the top flight level. Period. He was coach of FC St. Pauli when they were in the 2nd division, and then he coached FC Pippinsred. I hope I'm saying it right, in one of the lower tiers of German football. So it's a great start for Brighton, and I look forward to seeing them more throughout the season. They're always a team, you kind of look forward to watching as a neutral, because they have that exciting element to them, and they still have that with this new manager coming in. So for me, hats off to them. As far as Arsenal, very disappointing result. Because look, you're at this point of view, you're battling against Manchester City. Every game is critical, especially games at home. And when you're losing games, not because you're losing to a better team, but because you're making, clumsy mistakes like what Declan Rice did that completely changed the game, you can't make those sort of mistakes and beat this juggernaut that is Manchester City. We saw what they've done so far. They've been perfect this season. Erling Haaland has 7 goals in 3 games. You need to take advantage of every opportunity you have, and you need to be very consistent. And again, last season they had a slower start, not slow start to the season, but slower start to the season for a team competing, and what that ended up costing them later on. You can't walk away from thinking after this game and not think, okay, is this one of the moments that's gonna cost Arsenal the league campaign? Critical loss for Arsenal, and it's very disappointing. It's very, very I'm not disappointed, obviously, because I'm not an Arsenal fan, but if I'm an Arsenal fan, it's very, very disappointing. It's been a rough week for Arsenal, dropping this and then losing Mikel Merino earlier this week in his first training session. That's a rough week for Arsenal, but Arsenal, they've shown to be resilient and they will bounce back, but will it be enough to win the Premier League? We'll see. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss Hansi Flick and this Barcelona team.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we talked about Arsenal dropping points to Brighton due to the silly red card by Declan Rice. We move on to discuss this Barcelona team right now. Barcelona has won 4 out of 4 games to start off La Liga. It was 12 points. They find themselves already 4 games played in. They find themselves 4 points ahead of Real Madrid, 4 points ahead of Atletico Madrid, and 4 points ahead of Villarreal, who are the next 3 teams, all with 8 points. And they've done it in supreme fashion. They've scored 13 goals and had 13 goals. They've scored 13 goals and only allowed 3 goals. And they've played some really, really good football. They've been resilient as well. They went down to Valencia early, and they looked pretty pedestrian in that first half. And they went on to have that good second half performance. They were down against Rayo Vallecano as well. Dani Olmo came in off the bench to sort of help save the day there. And in this game, Barcelona were able to defeat Valladolid 7-0 in a very, very comprehensive victory. You look at the stats: 23 shots for Barcelona to 4 for Valladolid, 11 shots on target for Barcelona to 1 shot on target for Valladolid. And yeah, they looked very, very comfortable. They looked very, very comfortable. They played this game at the Barcelona Olympic Stadium. From the time Barcelona hosted the Olympic Games, now it's kind of used as the backup site in Barcelona. We know Barcelona, they have their Camp Nou sort of renovations, and it was a good atmosphere. It was a comprehensive victory, and man, what Hansi Flick has done to this Barcelona team since coming in, the difference in sort of the confidence and swagger that they play with now compared to last season. I think defensively they look a lot more solid this season with this sort of a young partnership of Pau Cuparasi and Inigo Martinez, which I think, Pau Cuparasi is young, obviously not Inigo Martinez, which is only kind of improved with Ronald Araujo coming back into the fold at Barcelona. I have to say, I mean, this Barcelona team look very, very deadly, and this Barcelona team looks like a team that can compete for this La Liga title this season. Before the season, not many people really gave them much a chance to get past. Not many people gave them a chance to get past to win La Liga above Real Madrid. In fact, more people had confidence of Atletico Madrid being sort of a bigger test for Real Madrid in this La Liga campaign. But for me, what Barcelona has looked like so far, they have looked an amazing team. They've been battle tested as well when I talk about how they went down early as well. I mean, Hansi Flick, I think he got a bad rap whenever he was what happened at Germany sort of, didn't ruin his name, but we sort of forgot, the genius manager that this guy was at Bayern Munich. He did lead them to a Champions League title. We forgot who he was, and he had that sort of run at Germany that wasn't very successful. Which sometimes managers they're just not fit for the international management. I'm not saying he's not fit for the international management, but has definitely his forte is being manager at the club scene where he can work with the players day in and day out, and they look very, very good. They look very comprehensive. They look it's a little bit different in terms of how they go about it, but it still shows a lot of quality. They're still able to control games in terms of possession. They have that little bit more ruthless nature to them, and yeah, I mean, he's definitely changed the game. He's definitely changed the game for this Barcelona team. This is a Barcelona team right now that looks like a legit contender to win the Champions League. It's only been 4 games, and obviously consistency is key, but man, and we're getting some good performances. Robert Lewandowski, he's sort of, he had a little bit of a down season last season compared to the standards that we have for a player like Robert Lewandowski. He had a little bit of a down season, but this season so far, he's been very, very good. Not just based on the goals he scored, but just general play. He's been very, very good. By the way, that's a player that's had experience with Hansi Flick as well. You go back, Rafinha, he had a hat trick today, the 20th, 64, 72 minutes, and it was very, very funny with Rafinha. He had a comment after the game saying this result kind of shows that Barcelona don't need any new players, which, by the way, the number one player that they were linked with, was Nico Williams. That was essentially going to replace him in that starting 11. That's the funny thing about it. Today he scored a hat trick, but for me, I know Rafinha has this kind of quality. I've known it. We saw it at Leeds. I watched a lot of their games at Leeds. He was a very, very good player. The problem that's been very, problematic so far in this time at Barcelona, and the reason why they're sort of looking for a replacement but they're eyeing a guy like Nico Williams with the quality that he has, is because Rafinha has not had these sort of performances consistent game in, game out for Barcelona. And, getting a hat trick game in, game out, obviously that's not what is expected, but there's certain games that Rafinha, you don't even notice him being on the pitch. And he just doesn't have that sort of dominant effect on the game. He has a lot of those at Brazil as well, not just for Barcelona. So, for me, the key thing about him is the consistency. Can he sort of, have a consistent set of good performances game in, game out? We don't want to see one great game for Rafinha and then 3-4 mediocre games. He needs to have a consistency at Barcelona, something that so that there's something that he can build on, and he can build the trust on Hansi Flick and for this club, so they don't go out and be desperate to sign a guy like Nico Williams. You know what I mean? That's what Barcelona needs to see from Rafinha. But overall, we got to see a first look at Dani Olmo playing in the midfield, starting with Pedri, with Marc Casado, the 20-year-old, sort of playing that holding role. which, we know Barcelona are sort of desperate in that area to find that sort of, guy in there. But Lamine Yamal, he's such a great player. Oh my God, so direct, so vertical, has quality, can play in tight spaces, can do everything, and he's only 17. And, when you see players like Lamine Yamal, Pedri, Jules Koundé, Balde, Ronald Araujo coming back, this is a team that's going to be very, very good very shortly. They can only continue to get better. And Hansi Flick has this team playing. He has sort of players playing that are not used to sort of playing at this level, especially the young guys. We saw what, Bernal, he had a very good game last game. Then he ended up tearing his ACL, which is sad. And then that allowed an opportunity for Marc Casado, who's come in and also looked so far not comfortable, but had a good, had a good game against Valladolid. Playing in there, sort of in the role for Marc Bernal. And look, obviously it's not ideal having to rely on these sort of inexperienced players playing that sort of role that you want experience at the most. But Hansi Flick is making it work. He's playing with support. Inigo Martinez, he's a decent center back, but he's not a Barcelona level center back. You know what I'm trying to say. Like when Ronald Araujo comes back, he will replace him in the starting 11, barring that Ronald Araujo is, going to be fit and firing. For me, what Hansi Flick has been able to do in this sort of fast sort of time is something that's very remarkable. And to answer the question before I end this segment, Hansi Flick is turning this Barcelona team into a juggernaut, and I think they're a serious outfit, not to just win La Liga this season, but also be a threat in the Champions League. We saw last year they were able to reach, I believe, the quarterfinals before they got eliminated in PSG. I think they can take that next second back. I say next. Maybe even a semi-final, final sort of level of, sort of level for them. I think they can take that next level. For me, Barcelona is a team to... I said this a lot now so far. This is a team to be reckoned with, but Barcelona is a team to be reckoned with. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll talk about Erling Haaland.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed Barcelona defeating Valladolid 7-0. We move on to Erling Haaland. Look, man, 7 goals in 3 games, 2 hat-tricks in 3 games so far to start off the Premier League campaign. He scored in every single game. I think for me, Erling Haaland does not get the credit he deserves, which is crazy to say because he does get a lot of credit. He's looked at as one of the best players in the world, but there's people look at him in sort of a derogatory way because, okay, maybe derogatory is a strong word, but there is that sort of ability that he doesn't really get the respect he deserves because he's not the most technically gifted player. He does not have the ability of like Messi to play in tight, not that player at all. But what he is, he's a poacher. He's an animal. He's a beast in front of goal. And he is a deadly player. And he's a player that strikes fear if you're a center back going up against him because he can do it all. He's a great finisher. He's a good aerially. He has size and strengths, and he can out-muscle you. He has pace. He can run in behind. He can do so many things in terms of, as a number 9. Now, he's not going to come, drop down, and sort of, play like, Harry Kane or anything and be a sort of creative player in midfield. That's not his game. Although that is an underrated part. He can receive the ball in midfield and sort of not play those sort of crazy diagonal balls that you see, Harry Kane play. But he can, get the ball sort of comfortably, control it, get it from one side, and keep the attack going and keep the attack flowing. But he isn't the most technically greatest, sort of player, but he just has that knack. And if you get the ball to him in the box and he has an opportunity to take a strike 99 out of 100 times, that's going into the back of the net. He's an absolutely brilliant player. And to score, and these what he's done since he came at Manchester City, the numbers are unbelievable. They're just unbelievable. They're not human numbers. The only numbers I see, crazier than this is Messi's numbers, and Messi's numbers is just absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about Erling Haaland. Let's go to statistics actually. At Manchester City, so far this year, he scored 7 goals in 3 games, 2 hat-tricks. Last season, he had 27 goals in 31 games in the Premier League. Not his greatest outfit, but still a really good goal scoring. The Premier League campaign before that, his first campaign, 36 goals in 35 games. 36 goals in 35 games, and he scored 6 goals in 9 games in this past Champions League. The Champions League before that, the Champions League campaign that they won it, he had 12 goals and in 11 games. And Erling Haaland, he's a brilliant player, right? And he had, I think, part of the reason why he doesn't get the respect he deserves is he had that, in the semifinals and in the finals of that Champions League run, he did not score. He didn't score. He didn't register a single goal. But Manchester City he's able to open up space for other players because of how much fear and how much attention he gets from the center halves, which nobody talks about. And also, when Manchester City are going up against these sort of bigger teams, they tend to play a little bit more slower, tend to be a little bit more precise, tend to be a little bit more, sort of more careful and cautious with the ball in trying to break down these teams. And they don't really they don't really hit that long ball over the top that Erling Haaland can be devastating and running in behind. They don't cross the ball in and give Erling Haaland chances to, win it 50-50 opportunities in the air. They kind of have a more precise and sort of measured approach to it. And they don't really feed Haaland the way they do going up against, the lesser teams. Because when the pressure gets on and you're playing against these sort of great teams, Manchester City tend to play a little bit different, which for me has cost them a little bit over the past few years, especially late in the Champions League. And I don't blame Erling Haaland for that, for not being able to score in the semifinal and the finals of the Champions League. Because think about this. Did you see an opportunity that Erling had in those games, and you were like, ask yourself, Erling, you need to ask yourself this: all the people that criticize Erling Haaland for not showing up in semifinal and finals, in their opinion, do you watch that game and do you see Erling Haaland miss an opportunity that he should hit in the back of the net? Is there a clear-cut opportunity that he essentially chokes on? No. He doesn't get those opportunities created for him in those sort of games. That's the thing. Erling Haaland is a brilliant player, and he just doesn't have, he just doesn't get the chances created for him the way he does in the rest of the games in the season. It's not like Lukaku. Now, you've seen Lukaku in in important games for Belgium, for Inter Milan, where he's had clear-cut opportunities that he just flat out misses. Clear-cut opportunities that you can point out. You can't point that out when it comes to Haaland in those sort of situations. The games that he doesn't score is because there was no chances created for him. So for me, so far, based on recent form, yes, he is the best player in the world. Because you're going to compare him with Kylian Mbappe, yes. But Kylian Mbappe, he scored his first goals at Real Madrid La Liga campaign. He scored his first few goals this past weekend. We'll go more in depth in that tomorrow. We didn't have time to get it for it today. He had those 2 goals, but in this past European Championship, so far the start of the season, that second half of last season, especially that run PSG had in the Champions League with PSG, where he wasn't really at his level. Mbappe has not been at his greatest since that 2022 World Cup. I don't see that same Mbappe that we saw at that World Cup. It's been a little bit flat from him. For me, Erling Haaland, what he's done, the way he started this season, I mean, he's been a beast. He's been an absolute beast. And look, there's other players like Mohamed Salah. There's some really, really good players out there, some top-level players, some top-level talents. But for me, I do have to give him the slight edge right now. Just 7 goals in 3 games. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. 7 goals in 3 games is ridiculous. That's FIFA numbers. That's when you hop on FIFA career mode and you sign a striker like Mbappe and Haaland. That's when you get numbers like that. There's FIFA career mode numbers. Messi, that 92 goal mark in the calendar year, that will never be beaten. I mean, I have to say that will never be beaten. But apart from that, this is the greatest I've ever seen in terms of a goal-scoring aspect. And yes, he does play on Manchester City with amazing ability and amazing quality, and they have the players to create for him, to create a lot of opportunities for him. But at the same time, he's the one that has to finish it. And his ratio, I don't have the exact statistic in terms of his ratio, in terms of chances finished, but I have to say Erling Haaland in front of the goal, I don't even need to look. I just assume is going in. Every time he gets a one-on-one opportunity, there's no doubt in my mind that the back of the net is going to nestle. There is absolute no doubt in my mind. And it just shows the sort of player that he is and what he's been doing. And look, I think it's pivotal for Manchester City. I was talking about how, sometimes Erling Haaland doesn't get the chances created for him in those sort of late games in the Champions League. I think it's pivotal when they're playing these better teams, whenever the pressure starts mounting to, because the Manchester City players, Pep Guardiola, how, he sets up, their nature is to be a little bit more safe, a little bit more, safe with the ball. And they don't like to take those risks. They don't like to, put a cross in a 50-50 area and risk losing the ball, or play that sort of diagonal ball over the top to Erling Haaland. Be a little bit more direct. They're naturally not that direct. And whenever they're playing against Ipswich Town or playing against this lower teams, and they're playing with confidence, they're willing to try more things. They're willing to take more risks. But when you're playing against a difficult team in a late sort of round situation where the pressure is on, an elimination sort of situation, I feel like as a team, the pressure does get to City a little bit, and you see them resort, a lot back to their normal ways of being pretty slow in possession and really trying to, sort of pass the ball into the back of the net, and they don't take the risks that they do, when they're playing, when the confidence is high and they're playing sort of a lower end team. So for me, the key for Pep Guardiola and the City team is to keep that sort of, because they're naturally a possession-based team, but they have a little bit of a direct element to them with Erling Haaland. Play to that more when you're playing against the tough teams and when the pressure is up. Take more of those risks. Play the ball over the top to Erling Haaland. Put a cross in so he can win a 50-50 opportunity. Give him the chances to sort of, to make his mark on the game, because he doesn't get that many opportunities created for him in the sort of late games. But yeah, for me, right now, I have to say Erling Haaland is the best player in the world, and, he continues to keep up what he's doing. He will run away with Ballon d'Or this following season. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to some of the top soccer headlines going on in the soccer world. Before the break, we discussed Erling Haaland. Is he the best player in the world? We're moving on to talk about some of the top soccer headlines going on in the soccer world, and we have to start off with some crazy news, in my opinion. Victor Osimhen is going to go to Galatasaray on a loan deal to Galatasaray, and this is after we know he sort of wanted out for Napoli for a while now, and Antonio Conte has made plans to play without him, bringing in Lukaku into the club, and we know the sort of strained relationship between Osimhen and Napoli, and Osimhen found himself in an awkward position that he couldn't get the transfer out of there. Team was able to coop up the value for him, for Erling Haaland, for Victor Osimhen, and it put him in an awkward position that he can't sort of play anymore. Like he was gonna be put in a position he wasn't gonna play anymore because Antonio Conte, he's one of the most stubborn human beings alive. My friend was telling me he's a manager that's gonna die before before going back on his word, and he brought in Lukaku. He was done with Osimhen. He came into the club thinking Osimhen is going to be sold immediately, and it was really pervasive in the way that he really wanted Lukaku to come in the club, and now Osimhen is going to, with the fact that all these big teams, they weren't able to get him, PSG, Chelsea, Arsenal, all that, he's desperate for a move away, because he's not really going to play under Antonio Conte at Napoli, from what it sounds like. And he has traveled to Istanbul to complete his transfer to Galatasaray on a loan deal. And it's really sad. Victor Osimhen is a player that's good enough to start on the best teams in the world, on the best teams in the world. But he's having to go play a year at Galatasaray, essentially, on loan, and then sort of leave the next season with the release clause, the $75 million release clause at Napoli, and that's just unfortunate for Osimhen as well. Unfortunate for Napoli. No, not unfortunate for Napoli, to be honest. Kind of disappointing for both, but very disappointing for Osimhen, who essentially is kind of wasting a year in his career playing at Galatasaray, because this is a player that should be competing for Champions Leagues and big, not Turkish league, but top leagues in the world, and he's having to go in Galatasaray, which will make Galatasaray probably the favorites now to win the Turkish league, with how dominant that they were last year. They only finished, I think, a point ahead of the rivals. We can check that actually. But yeah, this should definitely make them the favorites this year. They started off great, winning 3 games so far. They had that disappointing spell in the Champions League, in which they were eliminated in the qualifying rounds. But in Turkish league so far, they're 3 wins of 3. This past season, they won the league with 102 points. Fenerbahce finished second with 99 points. It was 99 points. Fenerbahce, they were able to bring in Jose Mourinho, and they've had a great start too as well, winning 3 games, drawing 1. But now with Osimhen going to Galatasaray, I think they should win Turkish league. Luis Suarez, he's going to retire from Uruguay after this Friday's World Cup qualifier. He announced that he'll be retiring from the Uruguay national team in a news conference this past Monday. He's going to step away after their World Cup qualifier when they take on Paraguay on Friday. He's their all-time leading goal scorer in international history. Was scoring 69 goals for Uruguay, and he's had 142 caps for Uruguay, which will turn, if he gets on the pitch against against Paraguay, will turn into one 143, and yeah, it's good that he kind of gets his farewell game. It's gonna be at the Estadio Centenario in Montevideo, the sort of big stage for Uruguayan football. And yeah, I keep saying Luis Diaz, when he talked about it, he said, Luis Diaz? Luis Suarez, when he was talking about it, said, "There's no better pride in oneself than knowing when the right moment to retire is. And luckily, I'm confident that I'm retiring from the national team because I want to take a step aside. I'm 37 years old, and I know that it's very difficult to get to the next World Cup. It comforts me a lot that I can retire, and not for my injuries to retire me or to stop being called up. For me individually, it is very helpful for me to want to take that step aside and feel ready. It's difficult because the decision was not easy, but I go with the peace of mind that until the last game I gave my all, and that the flame did not burn out slowly, and that is why I made the decision that it should stop now." Cristiano Ronaldo, talking about Portugal, kind of the other way around. Cristiano Ronaldo with Portugal, playing against Croatia and Scotland in the Nations League, and Roberto Martinez naming Ronaldo to the squad. Cristiano Ronaldo said, "That's all from the press. It never crossed my mind that my cycle with Portugal had come to an end. Quite the opposite. It gave me even more motivation to continue, to be honest. The motivation is to come to the national team, to win the Nations League. We already won it once and we want to do it again. I might say the same thing over and over again, but I don't think long term. It's always short term. Until the end of my career, I'll always have the mindset that I will be a starter. What I feel at the moment, and the coach's words also demonstrate this, is that I continue to be an asset to the national team, and I'll be the first to admit if that isn't the case. When I'm no longer an asset, I'll be the first to leave, but I will go with a clear conscience as well, because I know who I am, what I can do, what I do, and what I will continue to do." He'll be continuing for Portugal. Whether that's the good of Portugal or not is a different conversation, but salute to him. Joshua Kimmich, he has been appointed as the national team captain, the German captain, after the retirements of a lot of key experienced players: Manuel Neuer, Thomas Muller, Ilkay Gundogan. Ilkay Gundogan was actually the captain at this past European Championship as well. Now Joshua Kimmich, he's going to be the permanent captain for the German national team. Julian Nagelsmann said it. He said he called Joshua Kimmich the logical successor to Gundogan as captain, and it's a player with a lot of what's the word? Manuel Neuer actually also retired. I forgot to say that, and it's a player with a lot of experience, and he has leadership ability to him. And it's also Nagelsmann, he confirmed that Marc-Andre ter Stegen, he finally will get his chance to be the number one goalkeeper for the German national team after being in the sideline for a while, being the sort of the number two to Manuel Neuer. Now with him being 32, he will be finally Germany's new starting goalkeeper, and he will be the starting goalkeeper into this run for qualifying for World Cup, into World Cup 2026. And obviously it's widely expected that Neuer was going to give, not Neuer, ter Stegen was finally going to get that opportunity. But it's happened. Dani Ceballos, he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks for Real Madrid with an ankle sprain. They confirmed this on Monday that Ceballos got injured in their win over Betis, which is disappointing because we already know that Bellingham is out. And then on top of that, now Dani Ceballos, it sort of limits the players in the midfield. came from Real Madrid in a statement following tests carried out today by the Real Madrid National Service on our player, Dani Ceballos. He has been diagnosed with a grade 3 sprain with ligament damage to his right ankle. Ceballos was, that's disappointing injury, but something that shouldn't derail Real Madrid in their campaign this year. Thank you guys for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired.